Ask talk.
Harriet, do you have your audio on?
Yes, I do.
Okay, we're live now.
Okay. Yeah.
We can welcome everybody.
Okay. My name is Harriet Miyasato Bilio, and I am president of the Alaska Native Brotherhood Camp 1. My Tlingit name is Kuskakish, and I'm Raven Dog Salmon Clan. Welcome to all the candidates who took the time today to participate. Candidates for the Sitka Assembly, the Sitka School Board, and for our mayor position. And thank you very much to the Raven Radio. My question for the candidates today is, if you are elected, would you advocate the fact that we are all on Tlingit Yaqui land, and we as Tlingit and Native people living in Sitka would love it if Sitka Assembly and School Board and the mayor would open their meetings acknowledging that we are on Tlingit land. Welcome very much, and thank you, Raven Radio.
Gunishish, Harriet. Good afternoon and welcome everyone. My name is Nancy Furlow, and I am the Alaska Native Sisterhood Camp 4 president. My Tlingit name is Satjuan, and I am Deshitan, which is a Raven Beaver clan. ANB Camp 1 and ANS Camp 4 are very excited to be hosting this candidates forum today. We will begin today's forum with mayoral candidate Stephen Eisenbeis. Unfortunately, Mayor Paxton had a previous engagement and will not be joining us today. Stephen will have approximately 20 minutes to answer questions before we move on to our 3 school board candidates, Blossom Twitchell, Andrew Hames, and Cass Pook, who are competing for 2 seats on the school board. They will also have approximately 20 minutes to answer questions. Finally, the candidates for assembly will join us. There are 8 candidates for 2 open assembly seats in an extremely competitive race this year. I'll read questions to the candidates and they will have 2 minutes to respond to each question and several 1-minute questions. Catherine Rose with Raven Radio is our timekeeper today and live streaming for us, and will let the candidates know when their time is finished. Gunalchish, and thank you to Catherine and Raven Radio for helping us live stream this event today. And Barb Bingham will help me, an ANS sister and member of our camp, will help me with any muting or technical issues that may arise as we're moving forward with the forum today. So at this time, I'd like to welcome Stephen and thank him for being very patient. We had a few technical challenges live streaming today. And Stephen, in 2 minutes, can you please introduce yourself and tell us just briefly about your platform?
Yeah, thank you for having me. As I said earlier, it's not like we've never had an assembly meeting without technological issues. So I definitely understand the difficulty, but I think we're all getting through it these days. So my name is Stephen Eisenbeis. You're one of your 2 candidates for mayor. You know, the reason that I decided to run for mayor this year, I want to bring a sense of calm to the assembly. I want to bring a sense of respect to the assembly. I want to bring an inclusive leadership style. I want to make sure that our meetings are done in a fair, efficient, and timely manner, because I think not only the assembly members deserve an efficient meeting, but I also believe that the public deserves an efficient meeting. You can't, excuse me, that's my phone ringing on my end. You can't sit in the public, in the crowd and expect that your agenda item that's going all the way until 11 o'clock at night sometimes, that you really want to sit there for that long. So I want to bring an efficiency to the meeting as well. I believe that over my last 6 years on the assembly, I've seen a lot of different leadership styles. I've seen a lot of different things that allow me to take the little bits of good out of each of those in order to develop my own leadership style here. So I hope to lead the assembly into the future and for the next generation of.
Thank you, Stephen. So this is a 2-minute response. Provide 3 examples of how you would seek to increase economic development without major impacts to lands and resources to the Tlingit and Haida tribes in Southeast Alaska. And if necessary, how would you consult with the tribal citizens that comprise these tribes in Sitka or areas where impacts to their cultural sites will be a finding of significant impact to lands, waters, or their cultural resources? You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. And I'm actually really excited to answer this question because I think we commonly talk about economic development, but we don't often talk about the other perhaps ugly side of economic development as well. And that is the impact of the lands, waters, and the cultural resources. So I think it's an extremely balancing question to ask because we need to keep that side in mind too, because if we simply charge forward with economic development, we could end up in a place where Sitka is no longer Sitka, where we don't desire to live here as much because the lands, waters have been affected so greatly. So 3 ideas. Number 1, I'd like to ensure that Search has the resources within City Hall to move forward on their development plans. No one else has come forward with over $300 million in economic activity planned for the town in the next couple years. So I want to make sure that there is the resources in City Hall for them to rely on to make sure that they get their building permits, that they get their whatever it might be that they're going to need in order to build a new hospital facility here. I would like to continue work on the haul out, even though we did not win a build grant. The nice thing about the haul out is that land has already been developed. So there is a large potential for very little impact to the land and waters. I say very little to the waters because DEC requires us to have a pretty intensive washdown pad where we're not going to just wash chemicals into the ocean. And then finally, I think with economic development, you also need housing for that. So I would like to start a conversation with BHA to see if there's anything that the city can do to assist with housing on their Indian River parcel. They have a rather large parcel up Indian River, and I just haven't talked to them about their plans for that. And then finally, since I'm running out of time, I believe development should always be balanced with resource capability. We don't want to overdevelop Sitka to a point where no one wants to live here anymore.
Thank you. This is another 2-minute question. What is your plan to move towards financial stability for the city in your first 3 months in office should you win the election?
So yes, moving towards financial stability is going to be extremely important in times of COVID. I don't know that there's anyone in Sitka who right now can say that they're doing extremely well with COVID. So we need to live within our means. And I think very fortunately, our administrator right now recognizes that and has already issued some instructions to staff to start reducing the spend of money. Because during these times, we're not going to be able to increase taxes. We're not going to be able to pull more out of the community. We lost a lot of the revenue from the visitor community, which definitely helps our city get by, but we're not going to be able to tax our way out of this. So we as a municipality, we need to start cutting when we can and where we can. And even if that's as small as, maybe not buying a new pencil, that will eventually add up. But we need to look very, very frugally at everything in our budget right now. And like I said, I believe city staff has already started this process in concurrence with John Leach, and I'm excited for that because then that gives us a leg up in next budget cycle. That does give us a little buffer room right now, but then next budget cycle we'll know exactly where we're going to be at where we are now, and can move forward with a reasonable budget.
Thank you for that. I'm going to give you a little break and give you a 1-minute question.
Okay.
Give you a little breathing room here. We appreciate the various organizations in Sitka that acknowledge that we stand on Tlingit Ani, Tlingit land. Would you support action by the city to include a land acknowledgement in all meetings, communications, and public facilities? Please explain why you hold this view.
Yes, this is something that I've definitely seen becoming more and more relevant in recent days. I do support the idea. However, I don't know that I am the one to mandate that. I still need to do a lot more talking to Sitka Tribe of Alaska, ANS, ANB, to make sure that this is done properly and respectfully, because I don't want to do it incorrectly. I don't want to do it how I feel it needs to be done. I believe if we're trying to honor, we need to make sure that we reach out to those that we are trying to honor and recognize, and ensure that it's done in a proper way. And I believe the entire community of Sitka needs to be in on the conversation, because I think there will be some pushback from it, unfortunately. But I support it. I would not be a roadblock to any of that. But I have a little bit more to learn still.
Thank you. Along the same lines, this is a 2-minute question. On a scale of 1 to 10, how important is it to include the Alaska Native perspective on issues, and why? Describe what you would do to eliminate racism in Sitka and achieve the equity of all Sitka citizens, including those of different perspectives.
Yes, thank you. This question has been my most feared, because of the scale of 1 to 10. One person can be an 8 to another person. So I'm going to answer your question, but I'm going to say it's very important to include the Alaska Native perspective on issues in Sitka. We do need to reach out to the people who have been here for 10,000 plus years when we are making decisions. This is the first time I've ever talked about this, but this is an idea that I've had stewing for quite some time. And I desire to add the STA chairperson as an ex officio member of the assembly. So that way, that voice from Sitka Tribe of Alaska is always included in the conversations. Ex officio would mean it would not be a voting member, but able to participate in the meetings just as anyone else would. And I think that would allow the perspective to be always included, no matter what the decision. So to me, I believe that to be very important. If I was elected mayor, I would appoint myself as the tribal council liaison, because I want to make sure that we are listening to the voice of the Native people here. So a couple of thoughts there. And then the other part of the question, which I think could have probably been a question on its own as well. What would we do to eliminate racism in Sitka? A very lofty goal indeed, but a couple of things that me personally I've been going through and I believe could help everyone. Recognition is definitely the first step. If you don't recognize that there's racism in Sitka, you're never going to want to combat it because you don't believe that it's here. Then learning about how it affects those who are on the receiving end of racism. You have to learn in order to feel the empathy. And then finally, once you understand, combating it at every opportunity. So if you see it, if you hear it, you need to take a stand against it.
Thank you. This is a 1-minute question. If elected, what are your goals and objectives to lower utilities and mortgage rates for residents?
So I'll be completely honest on this question. I don't believe that it's realistic to lower the utility or mortgage rates. I am desirous of, but I really don't think that that's going to be an option. What I do believe in is mitigating any future increases in utility rates, because I think that is actually an option that we have available to us. As I've talked about before, I think we need to revisit our long-range infrastructure plans for all of our enterprise funds and the general fund, because that right now is what's setting our rate increases based on infrastructure needs that we have in the community. Infrastructure needs are never going to go away either. Unfortunately, there's been declining federal and state support over the last 10, 15 years, which has made us have to pay for more of that. But I think if we push back some and we step some out of the infrastructure, we should be able to keep rates relatively the same to help out our citizens as much as possible.
Thank you. This is a 2-minute question and an important issue for some of us here in Sitka. What is your plan for eliminating homelessness in Sitka, and how important is this issue to you?
Homelessness is a big issue in Sitka. I'm sure we all know of someone in Sitka who is facing homeless or is homeless at the current time. My hope several months ago was to use CARES Act money to start a center, which included food security, employment transition, and housing transition, all 3 parts that I believe play into the homeless issue. And this would be using some new programs, some new city programs, and then some local partners as well. Unfortunately, strict CARES Act timelines pretty much prevented this because I believe it's a very in-depth program. I don't think we can effectively spin it up in a month or two. And we also had some concerns about future funding sources once CARES Act ran out. I don't believe it would be inexpensive to run all of these. So that didn't go anywhere, but it does hopefully show that homelessness and employment transition and housing transition is something that's on my mind that won't be forgotten about. Unfortunately, there were no respondents to the Assembly's request for information, I believe it was, and a desire to spend $250,000 on the homeless issue here in town. So that money was reallocated to utility subsidization. So that hopefully that'll help out people a little bit who are facing homeless. It does not, unfortunately, combat the issue right now. As far as combating the issue right now in our current situation, that's something that I would definitely seek some more outside help on. I'm not the most knowledgeable on that, but I know that there are a lot of community partners that are, and I think a great leader is only as good as the people he surrounds himself with. So I would definitely reach out for some more help on that.
Sheesh, thank you. This also is a 2-minute question. Does the current city budget identify core services that the city will have regardless of what budget cuts have to be made? If not, why not? If yes, what are those core services?
So I don't believe that our current budget identifies core services that would not be affected by budget cuts. As I see it, it's always been left up to the Assembly, the administrator, and then finally the public to tell us what the core services will be. And if I remember correctly, I think we actually went into an issue some time ago about current assemblies obligating future assemblies to spend money. And I believe that it was either unlawful or unconstitutional by Alaska statute. So we are kind of limited in our ability to designate a core service and say that it will always be funded at a certain level. But for this budget cycle, I believe we really need to focus and talk with our citizens to determine what they believe is the most important right now. Obviously public safety would come high on my mind. Schools would come very high on my mind. But what are those services that we need to dedicate our limited resources to this year so that we can continue as a strong community? And that I believe takes the entire town to talk about. Everybody's going to have an issue that is near and dear to them, and rightfully so. I'm glad that there are groups out there that hold everything or hold their projects so dear. But what are the few basics that we can't live without? That's what we're going to have to identify in this next budget cycle, fund those fully, and then distribute the remaining funds as we can. Unfortunately, I think that will leave us with quite a few shortfalls, quite a few gaps in the upcoming year. But that doesn't mean those programs and services would be eliminated completely. I believe as soon as we could refund them, that we would go about those, because everything that we do in Sitka right now affects someone, and someone loves the service that is provided by the municipality. So we need to get back to this current level as soon as possible, whenever that might be.
Thank you. And this is one last question, and then I'll give you a few minutes to just speak openly. Would you support, this is 1 minute again, would you support Tlingit language revitalization? Give steps you would take to accomplish this goal.
Most definitely. I don't want to see the language disappear. I see fewer and fewer fluent speakers, and that's I believe that's a very, very unfortunate. Unfortunately, it's been pointed out to me very recently that this might be a very hard goal to overcome. The Assembly actually received an email from a community member indicating that teaching Tlingit language and culture in schools actually had a detrimental effect on their learning, and then in their future success as an adult. And I strongly disagree with that view, that teaching someone their own culture and language is going to have detrimental effects on them as a human being. I believe that we should. I don't know what steps I would take, and I don't know that it would be 100% up to me to take those steps. I think it's a community discussion for sure.
Thank you. And then in the final 2 minutes, Stephen, just what would you like to say to our Alaska Native community here, our tribal citizens, and our just Sitka residents?
First, I'd just like to say thank you for the opportunity to have a different set of questions than is normally asked. As I said in the very beginning, normally every forum comes with a question about economic development, and everyone pushes for economic development, but they don't ever talk about the other side of it, the lands and the people and the resources, which I believe is massively important. You know, we can't just issue more herring seining permits and expect to economically develop our way out of that issue. So it's a great side to have on there. As far as if I was mayor and my responsibility with Alaska Native people, I would say to continue my learning. I don't know as much about the culture as I could. But would be happy to keep learning. So you definitely have an open ear with me. I want to hear the issues. I want to hear what's going on. Which actually reminds me, several years ago, Sitka Tribe of Alaska did a survey of their citizens, and I still have that survey. It was an economic survey. It presented a lot of issues that tribal citizens were going through. And often I refer back to that to make sure that the decisions that we make aren't going to unduly harm a segment of our population. Because we typically get in a one mindset, and I want to make sure that my mindset is open so that we can include everybody. So thank you for hosting this forum. Thank you for some difficult and in-depth questions. I wish I had some more time to answer some of them, because I think just one sentence on some of them doesn't necessarily cover the entire issue. But I just want to assure everybody that I will be open to listen to Alaska Native perspective and issues, and won't disregard that. I value your time on this land, and I value the fact that I am a guest here, and so I thank you for that.
Thank you, Stephen. And I know you had a very busy schedule today, so I appreciate you taking time to participate in the forum today. I also know there's many of us who, if you would like to know more about our native culture and Tlingit culture, would be willing to work with you and talk with you and include you in things so that you can get a deeper understanding of our life ways and what is important to us.
Yes, great. As I said earlier, a great leader is only as good as the people they surround themselves with. So
I agree totally.
you're very welcome.
Thank you so much. Gunulchish.
Thank you.
So at this time, I'm going to, the school board candidates will be admitted into our forum. And I'd like to welcome our 3 school board candidates, Cass Pook, Blossom Twitchell, and Andrew Hames. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
So in 1 minute, I'd like you each to introduce yourselves and just speak briefly about your platform. Andrew, would you like to start?
Sure, I can start. My name is Andrew Hames, and thank you again for hosting this forum and giving us another opportunity to put ourselves out there. I am a born and raised Sitkan, graduated from Sitka High School in 1998, went to college at Idaho State University where I got a degree in music education. I taught at Blackfoot High School for 6 years in Blackfoot, Idaho, doing choir and some other music classes, and came home every summer to work at Fine Arts Camp and also other jobs around town just to make some extra money. And I moved back with my family in 2013, where I got into the grocery business out here at C-Mart, which is our family business. So it was quite a career change, but I love being in Sitka, having my kids go to Sitka schools, and being able to be a part of this great community. I miss being involved in education, so I'm hopeful to get onto the school board and bring my experience and expertise to the school board table.
Gunulchish, thank you. Blossom?
Yes. Hello.
Hi.
Ataka, Banirak. My name is Blossom Teal Olson. I know for my run for school board, my signs say Twitchell. In the meantime of signing up for this election, I married my husband. We are raising our 3 children. They are currently in the Sitka schools. I have been appointed to the board to serve out this term before this election. My experience has been great, and I look forward to hopefully getting elected so that I could continue my work on the school board. I've been in Sitka for 25 years, and I don't plan on moving anywhere. Thank you.
Gunulchish, thank you. And Cass? Cass Pook. Remember to unmute yourself. There we go. You're still muted.
Okay, now can you hear me?
We can hear you.
All right. Good exchange. Thank you for having us and having this forum. I am Eagle Killer Whale Tlingit. My parents are Pete and Bertha Karras, and my grandparents who were very involved in ANB, ANS, Annie Jacobs and Mark Jacobs Sr. I grew up in Sitka and have 5 children. My husband is Stuart Pook. He's the pastor at Grace Harbor. And I look forward to this all being over and the elections being complete. And so good luck to everybody.
Thank you, Gunulchish. Okay, for this portion of the forum, I'll ask both 2-minute and 1-minute questions, response times. So the first question has a 2-minute response. And Blossom, if you could be the first to respond. The question is, the Association of Alaska School Boards fully supports the Alaska Standards for Culturally Responsive Schools, which were adopted by the Alaska Department of Education in 1998. Do you support these standards as a complement to content standards? Why are these standards important for student education in Sitka? And how will you ensure they remain at the core of our school district? Would this include supporting a cultural department and director? Please give specific examples in your answer.
Yes, I fully support and stand by what my experience has been since being appointed to the board. These standards, I believe, is a backbone to the growth of cultural awareness and cultural education staying within the Sitka School District. I fully believe that the Sitka School District is one of the most forward-thinking school districts within Alaska. I know that there are schools within Alaska that have a long way to go. I know from experience and going to the meetings that I have gone to, we've looked into the policies that we go by, and we have the schools enforce and run on. And we've changed language to support the cultural awareness and education within our schools. I fully support the SNEP program and the cultural education director. I want to see those positions grow, and knowing how important it is that our children continue their growth in their education, as well as their cultural education. I'm a strong supporter in ensuring that these changes continue to be made, and that every wording that we do change in policy and standards is culturally acceptable, as well as right for our students and our families. So yes, thank you.
Gunachish, thank you. Andrew, would you like to answer the question? And please let me know if you need it repeated.
You don't need to repeat it. Thank you very much. Yeah, I definitely support the standards for culturally responsive schools. Not just because it's the right thing to do, but with teaching, there's the content to teach, and then there's the art of how you're going to teach it and how you're going to make it relevant to the students in the classroom. And so I think it's an easy sell to teachers and educators that it only empowers them to make better connections with the students in the classroom, having an awareness of the local culture, the modern culture, the past culture, and how the past informs the present and prepares people for the future. If we can incorporate local ways of teaching, traditional ways of knowing and passing on information, it just provides a stronger educational foundation for students to grow from, and to know other sources of where they can find information and work with community members, community organizations, and just have that rounded experience that's going to make them excited to continue on with cultural aspects of education. The school board got a really great letter just yesterday about an intern with the Sitka Conservation Society who was a Mount Edgecombe grad, and she had a chance to work with Charlie Skolka a little bit, and just the importance of the relationship to cedar wood and demonstrations with carvings and art with the students. And those types of feedbacks show the priceless nature of incorporating cultural knowledge and influence as the foundation of building a solid education. So absolutely, I would be fully supportive of continuing with the cultural director and the cultural department in the school district. I just think you can't put a price value on that sort of knowledge.
Gunachish, thank you. And Cass, if you'd like me to repeat the question, please let me know. You have 2 minutes.
No, I'm good. So yes, I support the culturally responsive schools, and this is actually something that we started a few years back, and we actually had a keynote speaker at the AASB. Her name was Zarita Hammond. She's the author of Culturally Responsive Teaching that was given to all of our teachers in the Sitka School District. And she talked about how can school boards create conditions so that schools can integrate social emotional learning with culturally responsive practices that create high trust, low stress environment, rebuild the natural confidence of the marginalized students. I also look to continue our relationship with Sitka Tribe of Alaska and share our resources with filling the gap for students in the Sitka School District. They also, we have the Social Emotional Learning Grant, the CRESO grant, which is Culturally Responsive Embedded Social Emotional Learning, that provides training for staff and surveys and professional development and how to build a good foundation and improve student achievement. And that is a lot of packed information, but we actually led the state, Sitka School District led the state in what we were doing with culturally responsive measures. We started the Wuching, the preschool, which was a pilot program, and we still have it today. And we have data from that, actually the social emotional learning started from the lunch program to get data. So we didn't have to identify students by name or race, but it gave us the information that we needed to start the Wuching program, which was integrated. So thank you.
Sheesh, thank you. So the next question is a 1-minute response time. And Andrew, if you could start this one. The question is, with COVID-19, have you seen modifications written in IEPs, individual education plans, that really address the unique needs of Native families during this pandemic?
I haven't seen any updated IEPs. I don't believe that as school board members we would have access to those. They're of a confidential nature, but I would hope that there would be information included, accommodations made for individual students and the unique needs that they have. I remember as a teacher getting IEPs every year, and you go over them with the counselor, read them. It helps to inform how you're going to connect with students and the challenges. I know they cover just a wide variety of accommodations for students, and they're revisited annually. And then I think every 3 years, there's a pretty extensive revamping, revisiting, retesting to make sure that it's still meeting the needs of that student. So I would hope that the function of an IEP is to accommodate and to make and to meet students where they are and to help provide a quality education for them.
Gunachish, thank you. And Cass, if you could respond to the question next, and if you'd like me to repeat it, please let me know.
Yeah, Andrew was right on the IEP. It's confidential information. And so we really, as a school board, don't have input on that. But what I would recommend is for ANB or Sitka Tribes of Alaska to compile a list of advocates that can advocate when these issues come up, because there have been meetings in the past on IEP training, how to manage your IEP with your child or with a student that you're advocating for. And also be a part of a committee when the math curriculum, English curriculum, right now we're doing the science curriculum. Sometimes there are not Native representatives in a committee. So you just really need to advocate aggressively, make sure that every time they're going over something, that there is a Native advocate. Thank you.
Thank you. And Blossom, 1 minute.
Thank you. I'm going to echo what Andrew states. As a board, we are not privy to that information, but I'm going to speak as a parent of a child who has had an IEP. And from a couple visits that I've had with the schools and my knowledge of advocating for my son, the Sitka School District has been very attuned to advocacy on behalf of the parent as well as the student. I've given them pointers as a parent to how to hold a IEP meeting that is more culturally responsive. I fully support the tribe collaborating with the school district in the future to ensure that all families have advocates on hand. I can't say enough how much the Sitka School District has stepped up during this pandemic, and I'm proud of their progress.
Gunachish, thank you. This question will be a 2-minute response time. And Cass, if you could respond first. What suggestions do you have to make our school campuses safe from physical abuse, sexual abuse, and sexual exploitation, such as trafficking? What agencies would you suggest be involved to teach our children about these risks and how to stay safe? You're on mute.
That's already in place. We've done a lot of revamping in the safety of the schools. Parents have to sign in, visitors have to sign in to make sure that we know where they're going in the building. Even I, as a school board member, had to sign in. I used to not have to sign in when I was first on the board about 20 years ago, but as we went through changing things, I had to start signing in, as well as other board members, and let them know where I'm going. And also there's been curriculum through teaching kids safety in class and what they can do if they don't feel like they're safe outside of school. We have a policy that was created probably about 4 years ago on cyberbullying because that became a problem, so that when kids are dealing with cyberbullying in school, if it continues outside of the school hours, it's still a school issue. So we've done quite a bit for safety, and even with the COVID, the Safe Start, I mean, for students, and we're just working through that. I'm sure we'll make some changes as we go along through this year. But I think the Sitka School District has done a really good job on creating a safe environment for our kids. And also the organizations that come into the school, like youth advocates, and support the Sitka School District during the school day. Thank you.
Thank you, Gunachish. Andrew.
Yes, thank you for the question. I think being able to, the relationships with school staff that interact with students on a daily basis are key in this equation. Students need to have a place that they feel safe, whether that's classrooms, the school building itself, and relationships with their instructors, school counselors, and school staff that they feel safe around as well. I remember in my classroom, lots of kids would come in and eat lunch, or they'd come in before school. And that was one of my favorite things, during the day. It was just getting a chance to interact with students, get to know them a little bit more. And I think that type of interaction, hopefully you can see when something's amiss or when something doesn't seem quite right. And I think that educating staff and providing proper training for them is really crucial for this. Cass has touched on the trauma-informed or trauma-engaged practice in education, which I think is very important to continue doing, which basically helps staff to learn about adverse childhood experiences that might be a barrier to that student progressing in the way that you would expect them to progress, and how you can meet them in the middle there. I think we're lucky that we have wonderful local organizations, starting with school counselors, but I'm definitely in support of interactions, training involving our police and fire department, the tribe and tribal leaders, SAFE, the youth advocates of Sitka, Sitka counseling and prevention, and just being able to shape that community around the school. Not that people are going to come into the school and be we're the ones that take care of this, but helping to empower our staff to be on that same team, to be mindful and alert, and helping students with issues that may be happening outside of the classroom, but yet that manifest themselves in the classroom.
Gunachish, thank you. And Blossom.
Thank you. I'm going to echo what Andrew stated, and it's really at the basis of being a trauma-informed school, as well as a school that having schools that promote training for all of the employees that work on the campuses. It is about partnership and being able to work together as a community to make sure that our children do feel safe at home and in the classroom. I know community-wide and throughout Alaska, we have high numbers when it comes to ACEs and sexual abuse. So that's definitely on the radar. As a school board, we can recently we've gone over resolutions. I personally went through the advocacy section, which touches on all of the different resolutions put in place so that we have the focus that we're going to grow on this subject and ensure that we have safe environments for our students while they go to school. And I do know that the Sitka School District does implement the Safe Touch curriculum, and as a parent, I've appreciated that. It's opened up the doors to have that conversation that is needed with our students and our children. Thank you.
Gunachish, thank you. This is a 1-minute question response time, and Cass, if you would start. The Treaty of Session textbooks taught in schools tells one side of the story. Would you support the schools teaching the Native perspective of this? Be specific in your response.
Yes, I support it. I don't feel like I have all the information that you're asking about as far as the textbook. Can you repeat the question again?
Yes. The Treaty of Session textbooks taught in schools tells one side of the story. Would you support the schools teaching the Native perspective of this? Be specific in your response.
Yes, because I think many times the Native perspective is left out, and there has also been discussion on wanting to change the wording on history. And so I think it makes people feel more valued and more heard, and that their Native perspective is valued. Thanks.
Gunachish, thank you. Blossom, if you could answer next.
Thank you. Yes, I fully support moving forward with being a culturally responsive place of education. I think throughout the years as we're moving forward, our point of view as Alaska Natives has been validated, and I just want to see that being built upon so that our children can be empowered as well as grow as who they are. And as long as we have our children rooted in knowing who they are as people moving forward in their education, they're just going to grow from there. And I fully support moving forward with that voice and having it be heard within our educational facilities.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Andrew, how would you answer this question?
Yeah, thank you. I would be of the same mindset that Cass and Blossom have expressed. You know, I think back to my own education as a boy growing up, and you know, whether it's, you know, memory is a fuzzy thing, but whether it was the story of Christopher Columbus and Pilgrims, or Rosa Parks on the bus, or the transfer of Alaskan territory from Russia to America, the stories I think tend to get simplified, reduced to bullet points. And you know, it's only as I've gotten older, you know, and as you hear other voices, and I'm not blaming the school district for only teaching one thing. You know, it's our way our minds sum things up. In short, I think it's really important to provide as broad of a history with as many perspectives as you can, because it only enriches the entire story. As far as bringing in the Native perspective, I would want to listen and lean on the Native community to talk about how that process should be introduced into the schools.
Chish, thank you. And this will be the final question for the candidates. Blossom, if you could start. This is a 2-minute response. How would you bring divergent factions together to help balance the budget?
Thank you. You know, I know that throughout the state, throughout the nation, every part of government and every faction of life is looking towards the budget crisis. And I have approached the table knowing that I feel comfortable sitting at the table and discussing this. I myself am a pretty level-headed person that's able to have difficult discussions with everyone, no matter what your belief systems are, no matter what political party you affiliate with. In the long run, everyone lives in Sitka, and if you have a child in the Sitka schools, I want to be able to sit at the table and make sure that when it comes budget time, your needs are being met, and that the cuts that we are looking at aren't going to affect your child's education. So just being grounded in my my beliefs as being the best person that I can be and moving forward, and that's what I can ensure the Sitka community of what I'll do if elected.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Andrew, if you could answer this question next, please.
Sure. I think that what we need to make sure that we remember our common goals and purpose. As Blossom was talking about, we're all in this community together, and any cuts, budget challenges are going to affect everybody. It's hard, I remember as a teacher, to be told, you know, we need to continue doing this. We have less to work with this year as far as money and financial support, but we still have to meet the students where they are and provide the best education we can. And that's what we would do. We would do the best we can. We had to figure out ways to make a program continue to function that didn't have the kind of financial support it had in the past. But as far as being a person sitting at the school board table, again, reiterating what we're trying to do, which is whatever is best for all of our students and for the staff that works with them. And of course, that conversation can be very negotiable. As I've said in past forums, if you want to find out how important a program or a class is, just talk about cutting it, and you will hear loads of feedback about why you can't do that, why this will be so terrible for the individuals involved with it. And everyone, they're worth listening to. They're correct. There will be effects taking place to the staff and students through budget cuts. But I think leading an open discussion, leaning on experience of the current board members and community members, teachers and staff that have been here for as long as they have been, we have to figure out the solutions together. And so I think having those tough conversations, being willing to listen, being willing to be respectful to one another, and understanding why all of these programs are here in the first place and why the classes are there and why they're worth fighting for. So I think that that's our job at the school board table, is to be reasonable and be willing to have these fights, not in a negative way, but fighting for what we believe in and what we think is best for our students.
Thank you, Andrew. And Cass, if you could answer this question. And remember to unmute yourself.
Okay. I think the most important thing starts with the school board, just teamwork. And that's what I enjoyed over my years, is that we can talk about things, hard discussions, but we can leave the meeting and still be friends. We had good ethical practices, and I hope to continue that. And one thing that the staff and the community has brought up often is transparency in the budget. I think we need to be transparent and show honesty and integrity. We need to listen to staff, students, and community members when they do come to the budget meetings, because it's their community, it's their school, and we need to fine-tune the budget as we go through the process on what is important, because what is important to us may not be important to them. So we have made changes. We have made cuts that were different than what we may have thought the cuts were, because of listening to community members and staff and students. We need to have positive communication with the assembly when we have work sessions with them. We are cost sharing, and so we need to make sure that we are attempting to be on the same page and to make measurable progress. Another big piece is lobbying. However we're going to do it this next year is we may have to rely on hearings that are at the legislative office, and that's not just for the board members, that's for community members, staff, and students. And writing letters to our legislature. The best way to communicate with our legislature is to handwrite a letter, because they have to open every single one of them. So a lot of times they overlook their email, but write them a letter. All right, thanks.
Thank you. And I'd like to take this time to thank all three of you, Andrew, Cass, and Blossom, for your willingness to step up and serve on our school board here in Sitka. It's obvious from your answers today to the questions that all three of you are fully committed to our students and education here in Sitka. And again, I'd like to thank you for joining us today, for taking the time to respond to our questions, and good luck to all three of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, we'll admit our assembly candidates to the forum. I'm just checking to see who is here. I couldn't see the whole list of assembly candidates present. I do not see Amy Bethune. Is she? Hi, Amy.
Hi there. How are you?
Right in front of me.
Yeah, that's okay.
That's when you can't see stuff, right? When it's right,
It is.
That's
It's
when
true.
I look the most for things. When it's right in front of me, it's like, oh my goodness, you know, why didn't I just look right there? I was looking over on the side at names, and There you are. So welcome, Assembly candidates. We're really honored to have you here today, and thank you for being so patient waiting for us. We had a little bit of technical challenges in the beginning, like oftentimes with this new technology we're learning with the pandemic, so I appreciate your patience today. If you can each take just 30 seconds to introduce yourself and say a few words to our audience. Amy, we'll start with you.
Sure. Good morning. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. It's not morning anymore. I'm Amy Bethune. I am running for the Office of Assembly. I've been in Alaska for 26 years, Sitka for 4. I was on Prince of Wales on Craig for 8 years before that. And we've come to love Sitka and are really, really looking forward to see how Sitka makes it through this year and recovers. I think Sitka, there have a lot of hope that Sitka has creative people in it, and we can find solutions for the problems that we have. So thank you for having us today. Yeah.
Thank you for joining us. Frederick, if you can introduce yourself next.
Kuthgansi Hinudikyang.
We've got some background echoing, so there must be a second device.
Sorry about that. Kuthgansi Hinudikyang. Place of one's own is my name in the Haida language, and I'm of the Skudja Uth clan, which is an eagle with beaver, frog, and sculpin crests. Before moving to Sitka, I lived on Prince of Wales Island in Kasan, and I live here now with my family, with Blossom and our 3 children. Some of you might know my stepmother, Opal Helgeson. My dad, Frederick Olson Sr., went to SJ, so people might know him as well. Thanks to the ANB.
Thank you and welcome today. Rebecca, if you'd like to introduce yourself next.
Sure. Hi, I'm Rebecca Himschut. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with ANB and ANS today. I think the organizations represent a long history of hard work securing the rights of Native people that were denied too long. I recognize that I'm a guest on Tlingit Ani, having lived in Sitka only 22 years. I grew up in a small town in Iowa and then completed my education here at UAS and further education at Gonzaga University. I've been a teacher at Keats since 2004, and I'm really pleased to be here and have the opportunity to speak with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you and welcome today. Marshall, if you'd like to introduce yourself next.
Yes, I'm Marshall Scott Albertson. I've been in Sitka about 22 years, 54 years of age, business and entrepreneur. I love Sitka. I love all the people of Sitka. Yeah, that's about it. I'm running for assembly to try to help Sitka be great again. Thank you.
Thank you and welcome today. And Diana, if you'd like to introduce yourself next, please.
Hello, thank you for hosting this forum for us today. My name is Diana Dapsevich, and I was born and raised here in Sitka. I spent several years down south for school, studying environmental science, and then I've just moved back up here 4 years ago, and I'm currently working at Dapsevich Accounting. And I am really excited to be running for assembly this year. I think there's a lot of challenges ahead, just for this year, but also the next 3 years especially, and even further down the future. I just want to ensure that Sitka is going to be a place where everyone can thrive. Thanks.
Thank you and welcome today. Crystal, if you'd like to introduce yourself next.
My name is Crystal Duncan. My Tlingit name is Gayetli. I'm a lifelong Sitkin, born and raised here. We follow our mother's line, so I'm from the Brown Bear clan out of Angoon, the Tequedi. My father is Kiksedi. He has roots here in Sitka. And I just want to thank my brothers and sisters of ANB and ANS for hosting this forum on such an important topic. Gunachish.
Gunachish, and welcome today. And Leo, if you could introduce yourself next, please.
Hi, I'm Leo Jimmy. I moved here in 2012. Tlingit name is Dach Godane. Take the mother's side, Eagle. Running for assembly to help lead, help in all areas there in communications and government to government, and represent Sitka Tribe of Alaska also, and our native folks, as well as the city of Sitka. And there's a ton of stuff for, all of us to do in 2021 coming up, and do the best I can. Thanks.
You're welcome, and welcome today. And I would like to say that Steve Lee unfortunately had to work today and could not get off of work. So he's unable to join us, but sends his best wishes. So I'll begin asking the questions. The first question has a 2-minute response time. And Crystal, if you could be the first one to respond. On a scale of 1 to 10, what priority would you assign to restoring reduced services by the Alaska Marine Highway System? How do you plan or not plan to advocate for these services, and how important is this issue to you?
You asked for a rating between 1 and 10, and I'm going to take it and I'm going to put it at a 7. And let me explain why. So this is a shared priority between both STA and the city. They both want to increase service to our community. And I know it's a legislative priority for 2020, 2021. But this is a state budget issue. And so I think the role that the Assembly would play is staunch advocates for increasing service in a healthy capacity. Now I will reference Jonathan Christ Tompkins and Senator Stedman, and I will say that's almost preaching to the choir because we know that this is also something that they really prioritize. But further, I would expand to say we need to look to our other communities. The Assembly can certainly throw support behind it, but this is really going to gain traction when we look to our smaller communities who are affected much larger than Sitka was. So for example, the villages that literally are now receiving a ferry every couple of months, they're in a position where they need to be heard, and we can certainly support those efforts. And just kind of to tie into that, yes, the ferry system is critical to all of Southeast Alaska, including Sitka, but we are benefactors of some other transportation services that we just need to give a shout out to. So that would be Alaska Airlines and the regular service, the barge service that we have coming through on a regular basis. So when we took those budget cuts in 2019, I guess I can just close out by emphasizing the need to vote. Your voice is your vote. And if the ferry system is something that we all want to increase in our community, we need to put decision makers into positions where they're going to advocate for that. So I'm certainly supportive, gave it a 7, back that up with reasons why, and certainly hopefully in the coming year we can prioritize that as part of our larger picture here in Sitka. Gunachish.
Thank you, Crystal. Marshall, if you could answer the question next, and if you'd like me to repeat it, please let me know.
No, that's okay. On a scale of 1 to 10, I'm right about where Crystal was, a 7 to 8. We only because we do have other avenues of getting stuff here, but I'm not saying that every one of us would not like to see the ferry here on a regular basis like we used to have it. And I think we need to shoot for that, but this is a state issue. It's kind of right now it's between the state and the unions, and they need to get their stuff together, and especially for Southeast Alaska, and work together instead of against each other, and maybe make something happen, because we do have, like I say, we're fortunate enough to have some other avenues, but there are some villages and small communities around Southeast that absolutely, it's pretty critical that, if they don't have a barge service, how are they going to get a vehicle? How are they going to get this and that? And a lot of them depend on the ferry for some of their food coming in. So I'll definitely be an advocate for it. We call the governor, put a bug in his ear, and come state election votes, and let's all get out there and vote, not just in our local elections, but also our state elections. So thank you.
Thank you. And Rebecca, if you could answer next, and again, please let me know if I need to repeat the question.
No, thank you for providing the questions ahead. That was helpful. I mean, no disrespect here, but I'm not even going to give it a rating of 1 to 10, and I'll tell you why. I think it is a state issue. That doesn't mean we can't work towards restoring the ferries from the local perspective. So I'll absolutely support any resolutions. We have some really good problem solvers with the Marine Transportation Advisory Board, CETA, Sitka Tribe. There are lots of people who can work together on this process or on this problem, and I would support whatever we can do locally to make it happen, but it really is a state issue. And then I just want to point out, I think part of the problem is that the ferries have been cycled through so many different leadership changes. So one solution I can see that, if, again, I can't do anything about and our local assembly can't do anything about, would be to make the ferry somehow less subject to the, I don't want to say vagaries, but that's the word that comes to mind, of the revolving door of the governorship. So every time a governor comes in and changes direction on the ferries, it comes at a cost. And so that's part of the mayhem that we're seeing in the ferry system. And I would support whatever we can do on a local level. I want to be part of the solution. And so I will absolutely work towards better ferry service and restored ferry service in any way that we can do it locally. Thanks.
Thank you. And Amy, if you could answer next, please.
Sure, thank you. I think if I had to give it a priority level as far as priority to me personally, probably 7 or 8, I would fall in the same range. The ferry has been really important. It's important economically to us. It not just allowing locals to travel affordably within the Southeast, but school teams, sports teams, traveling, moving perishable food to market, from seafood, including to market. That's a big part of what the ferry did, allowing people to travel with vehicles to Juneau to load up with groceries at Costco, and especially from the smaller communities, I understand. That was one way they get their food, and that's not available to them nearly like it was. It's an alternative way. It's for our tourism industry. It's an alternative way for the visitors to see Alaska's coast and come up here. So it is part of the National Highway Transportation or National Highway System, and it receives federal funding, but obviously the state is low on cash right now. And I think funding has been the biggest issue. We can, and like everyone else has said, this is a state issue. The Assembly doesn't have control over this system, but we can heavily lobby for state funding. And we have been doing that. The state has also studied alternative, looked at different options for for ferry service, including a more regional, local, public-private partnership with Allen Marine. And at least at this point, based on the parameters they chose, it didn't pencil out. It couldn't pay for itself. So we can continue to look for, to the private sector and maybe a co-op type solutions. And I think we should do that. But right now, I think that's where we are. And there's just not the money right now. I think that there is the will, perhaps, on the part of the communities, but the money is a hugely limiting factor right now, and it's just expensive and it doesn't pay for itself. So we need to figure that out. But I think we would look for the private sector at this point, given where we are. Thank you.
Thank you. Leo, if you could answer next, please.
Yes, thank you for the question. Going back to the 70s, when I used to travel, we used to go back and forth between Juneau and Haines to do our subsistence. And it was also used a lot for our kids traveling for basketball, baseball, their events. And with the cutbacks and stuff that we went through in 2019, obviously didn't help. I do understand also that this is probably on a state level. So as far as the assembly and the local governments being able to step in on it, just as other candidates been saying, that we'd have to let them kind of deal with it. But I think if there was anything that we can do, as an assembly, I would push for that and I would support it. It's not really give it a scale because I think that's, like I said, it's state. For the ferries, we need them, and I understand there's a huge budget deficit there. So yeah, anything that we could do with the tribe and the Sitka, the council assembly, I'm sure we would support it. But that's probably about all I have to say on that.
Thank you. And Frederick, if you could answer next, please.
Oh, thanks. It's definitely a top category. It is important to me, especially when you say reduced. Now it's one of those things, a sign of the times. We're asking for a reduced level, and that's a big ask. And so we definitely need at least the reduced service. Sitka, it's a growing importance as a hub community, especially for healthcare. And, a lot of folks will come on the ferry, not just for shopping, but also, coordinate a trip with their healthcare, their visits to the doctor here. And search is growing. The hospital's going to get even bigger. And so we need to look at this. And, for a lot of reasons, the city just recently declared at the assembly meeting a state of emergency. And so, sure, this is a state issue, but we're citizens of the state. And so, we need to work with the mayor. There's some powerful residents, Senator Stedman and Representative Christ Tompkins, work with them and be the squeaky wheel. And not just for us, but for some of our villages, communities that are close to us that we work with the most. And leverage the government to government relationship. Maybe this is a call for some new opportunities and what could be gained with the city working with STA's Tribal Transportation Department, see where some gaps can be filled. Also, Central Council, Tlingit and Haida. Southeast Conference just met, and I know there's some new data to look at. And this is something else for the city and the city administrator Leach to look at. What is the real math? What's happening in our region, and where can we roll up our sleeves and get some work done? But the ferry is very important, and so we need to talk about it. Otherwise, if no one hears that it's important, they don't think that it is. Because up in Wasilla, maybe it isn't, but down here it is. Gunashish.
Thank you. So this question also has a 2-minute response time.
Sorry, I didn't have a chance to answer that.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I agree with a lot of what the other candidates were saying, just as far as, this is a very far-reaching issue. But I do think it's really important because it's a highway. It connects us to the rest of Alaska. And if you think about it as a highway, it's a part of infrastructure and it's meant to help our economy keep going. So it's of special concern to me just because of how it affects businesses and that affects retention of workers here in Sitka. And we've seen a lot of other effects here, of course, just the ability of businesses to transport goods and for people to travel to other community events, access affordable health services, especially. So yeah, I still think it is very important, even though as an assembly member, there's not a lot of action I can take, but what I will do is just plan to advocate for federal and state support for the highway system, and just make sure that it's done in a way that is easy to maintain and will be sustainable. And I'm also just encouraging the city and others, the Sitka tribe, just to consistently keep pressing the state to increase ferry services, and urge the state to also include Native voices and the villages in these decisions too, because they have a really important connection to this issue and they shouldn't be left out of that conversation.
Thank you, Diana. And now we'll truly move on to the next question. And this is a 2-minute answer. Leo, if you could be the first to respond. Herring from years back had a much stronger herring run than it does now. It would be important to have the City Assembly work in a respectful way with Sitka's Native community. Are you committed to working with the Sitka Native community to ensure this vital resource remains? If yes, what specific steps would you take? If not, no, please explain. And Leo, if you have 2 minutes. And remember to unmute yourself.
All right, thanks. Thanks for the question. Yeah, I do support the herring issue, and I followed a little bit over the years since I've been here, and I believe, there's a committee there that I would have to touch base with and find out more on getting the information on what they've worked on. I know the tribe's big into that, and there's members there that I've got to reach out to and touch base with and get more information on this. Definitely in support of it though. And I know I'd have to look into RPD, which is our Resource Protection Department here in Sitka Tribe of Alaska. I know that's part of them. And there's another one I can't remember who I wanted to include, but for that, I definitely would support and look into that also.
Thank you, Leo. Rebecca, if you could answer next, please.
Yes, so I would have a lot to learn about the issues, but I can say that I definitely can commit to continuously seeking input from the tribe on that issue. And I think it's really important to recognize traditional ecological knowledge and to recognize the thousands of years of experience dwelling right here in Sitka, and to use that experience and that knowledge in the decisions that we make. So while I have a lot to learn on herring, I know the resources are there for us to make informed decisions, and that would be my goal. Thanks.
Thank you. Amy, if you could answer next, please.
Sure. I acknowledge that this is an important subsistence resource for the Sitka tribe. This has been also a hotly debated topic over the years because of the last few years, because of the decrease in the runs. Fundamentally, though, I think that this is again a state of Alaska Department of Fish and Game direct issue. They have oversight and manage the state's fisheries, and I know that what the assembly could do. I know that that's from what I've learned, that SDA asked the city a bit ago to approve a resolution related to the herring issue. Something having to, and I don't know the specifics of it. It was something to do with interaction with the state, but I don't know that there's anything directly that the assembly could do. I certainly support your voices and recognize that as an important resource. As far as actual actions that we could take, a resolution is probably, at least to my knowledge now, the best that we could do. But we support. We want to see the healthy herring fishery here, and I know that the state is working on that, and I know that there's been meetings and conversations that the Sitka tribe has had with them as well, and those are ongoing. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Crystal, if you could respond next, please. Remember to unmute yourself.
Okay, sorry about that. I want to start off by acknowledging herring in Tlingit, we say yao. And it's so important to my community that when I was working at University of Alaska Southeast, we would celebrate Indigenous Peoples Day, which started in 2017, officially by the state, City of Sitka, STA. All of those, we had a big celebration. For the second year in 2018, we decided that we wanted to honor our herring because, like Amy said, we were seeing reductions in the number of spawn that was happening, and that was really concerning to us. So just being Alaska Native, I can tell you that we have a strong relationship to the earth and our resources. And over the last 2 years, we saw a halt to the commercial fishery due to this year COVID and previous to that low prices, which allowed that resource to grow. It's young in its cycle, and we need to ensure that not just next year, but for the next 7 generations, we will have herring abundantly available. It's a valuable part of our ecosystem. We know that based off of science. And we've been sustaining resources for over 10,000 years. So it warms my heart to hear people acknowledging the fact that we have been responsibly here, taking care of the resources that sustain us. Now we're at a point where only Sitka is receiving that spawn. We're so fortunate that we have herring returning on an annual basis. So when I look to the tribe for, I guess I would look to the tribe, and I would specifically look to their resource protection department, where they use cultural values and science to make sure that this resource is sustainable. And then I also want to acknowledge that the tribe is currently in, as mentioned, a lawsuit with the state over herring management. And so at the assembly level, support not getting in their way and allowing them to pursue that, like we do agree that herring is a wonderful resource that we want to keep for the long term. So Gunachish.
Thank you, Crystal. Diana, if you could answer the question next, please.
So I think the historical ties to herring here in Southeast Alaska, especially here in Sitka Sound now, I think just it really makes it necessary to commence working with the Native community about this. I would want to encourage like more of like a collaborative working group that includes the tribe and the Board of Fisheries, maybe other interest groups as well, just to like be able to review and revise how the herring are being managed right now, and if it is sustainable, and just kind of get an idea of whether we might need to actually adjust fishing practices. But and I mean, even just like designating areas for subsistence fishing and just to limit commercial fishing in certain areas. But I think, yeah, I mean, it's just important for subsistence, but it's also important for our fisheries, of course. Like in the past few years, we've seen this fishery go down so much or not even open at all in some cases, or close early. So there's a lot of different groups, I think, here that are concerned about this. And fisheries are just difficult to manage by nature. There's a degree of economic uncertainty there all the time. So it's just, there's a lot of things that really complicate this, but I definitely want to encourage like collaboration with the Native community, especially just to look for ways that we can actually, sustain our way of life here for everyone.
Thank you, Diana. And Marshall, if you could answer the question next, please.
Yes, obviously I want to see our herring thrive for next 1,000 years. I have 9 grandkids, and I want them to also be able to see and enjoy and all the good stuff that goes along with herring. It's basically a state issue for the most part, but yes, I would absolutely speak to RPD and speak to the tribes and be open to communication with anybody who has any good ideas. But we could definitely be a voice that and call the government and the governor and everything, and ask them to get off their butts and actually do something meaningful and pass something. But it is a state issue more than it is a local issue. I think if the local communities had more power in things instead of the big government, I think we'd make a whole lot better choices and we'd be able to sustain this fishery. But we need to call our governors or senators or congressmen and tell them to get off their butts and make something happen, because this is a very important fishery, and it's been around for thousands and thousands of years, and we want to keep it around for thousands and thousands more years for all of us to enjoy. So yes, I'd work with anybody that I can that could help the situation along, but we really got to push our big boys and girls up in Congress and the governor matching to make this happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Marshall. And finally, Frederick, could you answer the question, please?
Yeah, in Haida, herring are inang, and the herring eggs are cow. And of course, I've eaten them my whole life. You know, they're so fundamental. The folks in Heidelberg simply call herring eggs fish eggs. And you can see, sure, this is a state and federal jurisdiction, but you see the problems when some folks look at natural resources as something they can take. And, you know, to the native folks, herring are so fundamental, but to some people, they're just another way to make money. And then you end up with what we have today. And we need to base our decisions on science, especially native science. You know, our folks have been here for thousands of years and actually can tell you everything about the herring and where they go. And that's why there's certain places are named the way they are. You know, there's a very ordered society that already lived here. And then it must be hard to take when newcomers tell you all this stuff about herring and other resources, but they don't even know what they're talking about. They just want to make some money. And this is where a broader relationship with the tribe can help. And simply knowing about these issues and knowing where a certain letter might help the tribe, you know, this can go a long ways instead of guessing or always finding out at the last, 2 weeks before a deadline to send in a letter of support. I already attend, to keep myself personally informed, I already attend the Sitka Tribe Natural Resources Committee. And if some of our committees on the tribe and some of the committees with the city could work together, early on, maybe we can get somewhere with some real sustainable solutions. Hawa, ganashish.
Thank you, Frederick. So the next question has a 1-minute response time, and Diana, you'll be the first to respond. Describe one partnership that the city of Sitka could have with the Sitka Tribe of Alaska that would save the city money and also benefit the tribe. Diana, and remember to unmute yourself.
Thank you. So one partnership that the city of Sitka can have with the tribe. So, okay, so I feel like there's a lot of opportunities here for these two governments to work together. And I know that they do quite a bit. So I mean, I would mostly look at developing in some of the more, just to like revitalize some of the more historical areas. I think that would obviously help the city with revenue, and it would also kind of be a nice way to help promote like celebrating the history of the area, especially like in the like the village area over in like Catliam. And let's see. Yeah, I mean, like I said, there's a lot of things. I think that's kind of where I would start because
That's time.
part of my platform is really about
Diana, that's time.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Diana. Crystal, if you could respond to the question, and remember this is a 1-minute response time.
Okay. I'll start off by acknowledging that the city and the tribe, they have multiple partnerships in place. So gonna cheesh to them for working so strongly together. That's part of that government to government relationship that I would like to be a part of, and I think I can help strengthen if I'm on the assembly. What I will do is also further acknowledge the Sitka Police Department. There are a couple of questions that pertain to that. I don't know if we'll be able to schedule that in as part of this forum, but the expansion of services through grant funding that the tribe was able to qualify for really allowed them to look at things that we all care about, like, for example, domestic violence. So they were able to provide police and resources so that they can focus on that area. And that's just an example of them positively working together. I think the most important thing is that the tribe and the city, they basically are able to have the conversation so that they're not duplicating services unnecessarily. They know what they do well and they know where they can work together to expand. So save money. I would support any partnership that would benefit shared residents here in Sitka. Cheesh.
Okay, thank you, Crystal. Leo, if you could respond to the question, please. And I know we're asking you a lot to respond to this question in 1 minute.
Yeah, it's just a little short, but I'll do my best. Okay, for one, I think, start with, there's a Sitka Comprehensive Plan of 2030 that was done back in, looks like 2018 in April, which is a partnership. And then also donations that was made to get the Nakahiti of 10,000 plus in to have it built in 97, which was a partnership. Also, there's a trail plan that was done in 2013, the CBS and STA and other entities involved in that. I believe that all helped also to save money that would benefited the tribe. There's also a current one going on right now with the development of STE, department I work for food distribution, that we're helping out with the CBS. And I believe that's also in.
That's time.
Thanks.
Thank you, Leo. Amy, if you could answer the question next, please.
Sure. I've been told that the current relationship between the city and the Sitka tribe is a good one, and I understand that there was an MOU or memorandum of understanding initially enacted between the city and the tribe a long time ago that was the first of its kind, and it's been used as a model for the state. So I think that the work that they've done together has been really good, and I'm in support of it. I'm in support of future partnerships. And a recent example, I think that was of one that was done was I think that the Sitka tribe providing iPads for kids and helping save city money in that case. But I support the partnership. I would actually need more time to do some research on what might actually benefit both the city and the tribe. And I would be interested in doing that, but I'm aware of the partnership. I think it's a positive thing, and I would definitely be open to future partnerships as we go forward.
Thank you, Amy. And Marshall, if you could answer next, please.
Yes, well, kind of like Amy said, from what I understand from talking to Mr. Leach, the city administrator, and talking to some natives and a couple elders, it sounds like the city and the tribe have a really good working relationship as it is. It sounds like they really try to help each other out and work with each other. That being the case, what I think would be really cool and could bring and be beneficial monetarily and culturally is I would like to see something to where, like, when tourists do come back to Sitka, because obviously they are a huge part of Sitka's economics, and I would like to see, them do something out towards Totem Park or something. We see a lot of totem poles and all that. That's great, but if the tribe could get something together and to where paid tourists can come through and see all the different ways of things, whether it's from hanging fish,
Marshall.
whatever. Thank you. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Marshall.
I apologize.
And we know that we're asking a lot to answer this question in 1 minute. Frederick, if you could answer next, please.
Thanks. Yeah, the city and the tribe have a relationship. It's hard to pick one program, Sitka tribe is a sovereign nation and has so many strong departments. I think if you had to pick one, maybe natural resources department, simply because it then has a lot of overlap with other departments. They'll talk about environmental issues, but then also cultural issues and dealing with elders. All kinds of topics will get talked about in the natural resources department, and that could be a strong area. Not that they're not already talking, but to talk earlier, have the administrators work together early on, setting out strategies for the year. Similar with transportation, and tourism. Tourism is people are always going to want to come here, and they're limited on how to get here now, but the demand to get here is there. And Sitka Tribe is experts in tourism. So to work with that, cultural tourism is growing.
That's time.
Thank you. And Rebecca, how would
I was afraid of the 1 minute, so I wrote my response to this one. So I'm just going to read it. The tribe is incredibly entrepreneurial. Lisa Gassman gave me some time recently and kind of walked through with me everything the tribe is doing. And so I had to write all of that down because it's a lot. They do everything from social services to transportation to legal assistance in tribal courts. The education effort they do is incredible. Wuching Preschool, SNAP, and they have tribal enterprises like Tannery and Tours and Resource Protection, and even BHA came here because of STA. So I'm only listing all of that because I knew it, but putting it all together was important for me. So we know that the tribe is doing a lot, so we should probably be asking the tribe, how can we help you do even more? But as partnerships go, I'd like to see us partnering more on grant writing in general. What are the grants that we could apply for together? So for example, the CARES Act that was already mentioned, where using the tribe's expertise, we could use some of the CARES Act funding for food distribution. Ooh, that was fast. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. We know we're giving you some challenges here, so we appreciate your responses today. Okay, this will be a 2-minute response time. So Frederick, you'll be starting these questions. Provide 3 examples of how you would seek to increase economic development without major impacts to lands and resources of the Tlingit and Haida tribes of Southeast Alaska. And if necessary, how would you consult with tribal citizens that comprise these tribes in Sitka, or areas where impacts to their cultural sites will be a finding of significant impact to lands, waters, or their cultural resources?
It might be easier to answer the last part first. Something I'm already involved with is the Sitka Tribe Natural Resources Committee, the Kayani Commission, and some with the Tribal Council. And those are the groups, besides clan matriarchs, clan leaders, and regular tribal citizens, but those are the entities of the tribe to work with on finding out such impacts and working with sacred sites in the first place. Like we've all said, a rising tide floats all boats, and trickle down economics has been tried and failed, but we might need some trickle up economics, and to work with the city administrator on giving our local families and businesses some break, some incentives. Like we have tax breaks for elders. We need something like that for young families. We need to fully fund our schools. And these things, it sounds like, oh, that's not economic development, but it is. Without people, we won't have an economy. And we need to have people stay here. We need to encourage our young folks that Sitka is a place where you can be successful. And like the boat haul out will be mentioned, but we need that to be done environmentally responsibly, and so to work with the tribe, the experts on the land issues, and not just guess. There's already contamination in one place where the boat haul out may be, and so these things need to be looked at. We need to do things responsibly, whatever we do. And again, work with the Kayani Commission, the Natural Resources Committee at the tribe, and the Tribal Council directly on these issues.
Thank you, Frederick. Amy, if you could answer next, please.
Sure. So as I think as the city looks to increase our economic development, there are some things that we could do. We can do this temporary tax and fee incentive discounts, basically for new and expanding business and industry, like some sort of a Sitka specific economic opportunity zone with package of options in order to grow the tax base. We can identify and work to we can identify and work to streamline any local development barriers that have been identified on the part of the city. So maybe even for zoning, we could change zoning to allow increased options for affordable housing and options for builders, allowing multiplexes and some other things. As we look to transfer in the future the remaining limited land we have for development, we want to make sure we think to establish a diversity of industry on it, which is going to be important if we want it to be sustained. We've seen with the visitors not being here this year that our visitor industry does have some vulnerabilities. And so we don't want to put all of our eggs in that basket. I think many of the potential development actions that would impact lands and waters, as you describe in the question, that belong to other landowners, they would often, I think, be addressed through existing building codes, maybe requiring environmental reviews, some kind of historical reviews. You know, we have a historical commission here. I think that would be that's going to be important to bring all interested parties together to look at work towards solutions if there are problems or obstacles identified. For example, you know, this isn't on the table right now, but if the community wanted to take another look at like tunnel mining or mineral extraction around Green Lake Road, because it's mineral rich there, then that would absolutely be a situation in which there would be a lot of parties at the table needing to have a voice. STA, the fishing industry, that's a big issue, and those kind of things would need to.
Time is up.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Rebecca, if you could answer next, please, with a 2-minute response.
Yes, 2 minutes feels like 2 minutes feels like a luxury. I think we need to look at some of the things we're doing right again, and I'm always going to focus on what are we already doing right, and then from that point, how do we get even better? And so Blue Lake Dam is an example of how we are able to generate green power in our community, and so many communities in Alaska are very envious of our ability to do that. And so where I think we need to partner with STA is as we develop anything, it needs to be done in consultation, and there are federal consultation rules for tribes, but I think we need to take the spirit of consultation and bring that to the local level. So the 3 steps I would take would be 1, supporting the roadless rule for the Tongass. 2, I would like to increase the infrastructure for independent travelers to Sitka. I think that can be done with a very light touch on the environment and really bring in revenue. We don't know if large cruise ships will continue in Southeast Alaska or what that will look like or when. I think we have a small cruise ship fleet right here in town already functional and operational and ready to go, and maybe that will come back before the big ships. If so, how can we get those visitors who come here for that small cruise to stay even 1 day longer makes a difference to our bottom line using the local resources of our town. And then I just want to repeat consultation and making sure that we have a clear pathway and that we hold ourselves to a standard of consultation in all decisions for economic development. Thanks.
Thank you. And Diana, if you could respond next, please.
Well, I think I would want to work to increase the skilled workforce here and just advance more economic opportunity, especially with young people, get them into like vocational programs, vocational training. And I believe especially with like the Native population too, because I know that the tribe has some programs that help with its members, young members, completing education. I know that they need more assistance with completing education and needing jobs and creating opportunities for them. It's super important. There's just the statistics for them for education and workforce and employment is it's something that definitely needs to be worked on, and I want to definitely work on getting involved with the tribe and making sure that they're given the opportunity to build the skills that they need to be working and contribute to Sitka. And then of course, like if they are doing that, they're maybe more inclined to stay because they feel like they are helping like improve Sitka as well, and they feel supported. And then as well, I think working on affordable housing and workspaces and just kind of making it more like multi-use for year-round residents as well. I would want to consult with tribal citizens just in a few different ways. I know Baranof Island Housing Authority has some lands that that they are developing for residential housing in different ways, and I know that that'd be a great way to just ensure that these provisions of, you know, historical native.
I'm sorry, Diana, that's time.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. And Marshall, if you could answer next, please.
Yes, well, I got a few ideas. One, obviously, that I've spoke about before is affordable housing. I think between Baranof Housing, the city, the tribes, everybody, we could come up with a little bit of land that we could get set aside for affordable housing. I have a great plan that I've been laying out to where we could actually have true affordable housing, you know, $150,000 or less for a brand new modular home sitting on its own piece of property. That'll have low impact. It's not going to take up a whole lot of land, and especially be broken up in various places in Sitka. Another one, you know, there's been a lot of talk about the green energy and stuff. And one thing we have to remember, even with our dam, and a lot of people are envious of it for having this hydropower, but also remember how far in debt we are because of it. So that's the problem with a lot of green power. We love it and we need it and we want it, but we got to find that balance between what's economically sustainable and makes sense. Second of all, jobs. That the old sawmill out there, we need to get that open back up. If we put the word out, we would have people knocking our doors down to set up a small operation there to mill some logs and maybe set up a kiln. We could do low impact on property on some of the land around here, and also to help prevent landslides and mudslides, we could start doing some selective logging. And that don't mean going up and clear cutting. That means going in, taking out groups of trees and leaving some. That way we sustain the root system, we sustain the trees and the aesthetics, but we also take a lot of that weight off of these hill and mountainside, because we all live in a landslide area. And if we don't start reducing some of this weight on these landslides, it's going to be bad for everybody, and it'll create hundreds of jobs. Thank you.
Thank you, Marshall. And Leo, if you could answer next, please.
Thanks. I think first I would start out with visiting a couple of our departments in the Sitka tribe, which would be resource protection, RPD, and also our economic development, SDE, and find out which ways would be least impact on our lands and our resources, but that would benefit Sitka and the Sitka tribe of Alaska, and would also benefit our cultural resource. So there's a number of different things there, I think, through this form that I'm gonna have to follow up on and stuff, but that's where I would start.
Thank you. And Crystal, if you could answer, please.
Sure. The city is in the business of running a government. So I mentioned that because the decisions that are made at the assembly table will impact economic development within our community. I want to basically plug the Chamber of Commerce, because we know they have over 200 plus members. They are a strong unit, and they can certainly work on the issue of economic development here in Sitka. I also want to reference a 2030 comprehensive plan. It was brought up by Leo earlier, and I really like that document because, one, it's a wealth of information. 2, it basically breaks down economic development, including the challenges and opportunities that exist in this community. And 3, it was basically drafted and brought together through community participation. So that's a strong backing through the community of what we need here in Sitka. Within the city, I'll bring up the Sitka Economic Development Association. I know that their focus is more on the Gary Paxton industrial park, but I think it could be expanded to look at economic development overall. But that kind of sums up the economic development question. And so I want to expand because the second part of that is without major impacts to land and resources. And so how do we do that? We're going to do that by talking to people, by experts. I keep calling them experts. Who are they in this instance? We have a lot of resources here in Sitka. We're talking about the Sitka Conservation Society. Us assembly members, we are invited by the Youth for a Sustainable Future. And then we are given a survey by the Citizens Climate Lobby. We know that there are people with a vested interest in ensuring that the economy thrives, but it does it in a responsible way. And then, of course, we keep plugging the tribe, but maybe they deserve it because we also have an expert in the Resource Protection Department who can weigh in and kind of help us as we're trying to figure out economic development here in Sitka.
Crystal, thank you. And I'd like to take this time to thank each of you assembly members. We have a tough race this year. 8 of you for 2 positions. I applaud each one of you for hanging in there, for participating in the forums that you've been in. You've helped to inform us as voters here in Sitka, and we're very, very grateful for that. Harriet, if you would like to have the final word, remember to unmute yourself. And while she's unmuting herself, I will just say that the Alaska Native Sisterhood and the Alaska Native Brotherhood are so grateful and thankful that you joined us today. As the first civil rights organizations in the United States, we urge everyone listening to get out and vote. Voting is one of our most important civil rights, and we urge all of you to get out there and vote in the coming elections. And Harriet, if you would like to say some final words.
Yes, I'm really grateful to the Raven Radio for allowing us to use the Raven Radio to meet our candidates that are committed to bettering Sitka as a community. Thank you very much, and thank you to everyone and all the candidates for stepping forward. And this gives us a better insight into the qualifications and the feelings that our candidates have. And we need this respect, the respect for our culture, for our ways, and for respect the other people that have made Sitka their home. God bless all of you. Ganeshish.
Thank you. And again, thank you, candidates. Thank you to Catherine Rose, who is behind the scenes, has been helping us live stream, bringing all the candidates from the waiting room into the forum itself, being our timekeeper. Barb Bingham, one of our ANS members, for helping mute and keeping me on track with the Zoom. So enjoy the rest of your weekend. Good luck to each one of you. Election day is coming up soon, so just hang in there. Thank you.
Nashish.